Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Oregon Board of Pharmacy rulemaking hearing. I'm Rachel Melvin, Operations Policy Analyst and our Hearings Officer. Today is Thursday, August 21st, 2025, and is 9:31 a.m. The rulemaking hearing is now in session and being recorded and retained for public record keeping purposes. Copies of the proposed rules are located on our website at oregon.gov/pharmacy on the rulemaking information page. Per the July 9th, 2025 notice of proposed rulemaking, this hearing is being held virtually via Teams, and individuals who wish to present oral testimony during the hearing have the option of signing up using the form on our website or the option to email their contact information to pharmacy.rulemaking@bop.oregon.gov. Alternatively, people have the option of joining the call to simply listen to the hearing. All written comments must be received by 4:30 p.m. today. Please submit written comments to pharmacy.rulemaking@bop.oregon.gov. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment on proposed rules. We will not deliberate or engage in discussion on the proposed rules. After the end of public comment period, a rulemaking hearing report will be provided to the board for their consideration at the October 2025 board meeting. We will begin with proposed amendments related to Division 110 fees. And the first rule is proposes to amend OAR 855-110-0005 regarding licensing fees. We had one person sign up to provide testimony, Anthony Tran, but I don't see this person on our call. Okay, give me just a minute, actually. Anthony, can you hear me okay?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning. Your last name is Tran, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. You can begin your testimony on 855-110-0005.
Thank you. The licensing fee increase. I perused the budget PDF, the governor's budget approval, and I was looking through it, and there's a couple things that, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So it seemed like the licensing fee increase. I understand that resources are needed. I understand that the turnaround time for the work that the board does, responding to complaints, inquiries, those things, they're not at the target that they want to be. So that all makes sense to me. What didn't make sense was the need to have to implement it through emergency powers. Last month, there was an emergency meeting that basically allowed that the board utilized their powers to start the rule in July. But the hearing where we would speak on it was this month. And it didn't seem clear to me what was going to happen between July and now that was so urgent that emergency powers need to be used. A lot of the shortfall of the budget that was being explained to us was due to the difference between what was asked and what was approved by the governor. And a good portion of that difference was a update of the database that holds our licensing information. And I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that there was enough to get through the whole year at current service level. And, the shortfall of that budget wouldn't really be experienced, if at all, till the very end. So that didn't seem like an appropriate use of emergency powers. And from a pharmacist's point of view, that's like me authorizing an emergency telephone C2 medication, saying it's an emergency when someone would be out of their medication in a month. I didn't like that use of it, because it also seemed to circumvent our ability to have a discussion about it before the rule was implemented. The other thing that was a concern um, was essentially increasing everybody's fees 40% all across the board. And I wonder if there was a better way to do that. I understand the fees were increased to raise the revenue for the board to operate, but did it have to be 40% across the board for everybody, pharmacists, institutions, warehouses, etc.? Because even within the report that was given to the governor, the board states that a lot of their workload is due to working with pharmacies because they have legal backing and they're big organizations like your CVS, your Walgreens, etc. Why wasn't it considered a tiered approach to the increase? For example, there's like about 30,000 registrants in the state. 20,000 are pharmacists, 10,000 are entities. And Walgreens, CVS, McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, all that together, like over $200 billion in profit yearly. The pharmacists are like 3 if you do the math, very rough math. And if a lot of your time is taken up dealing with the bigger institutions and they're also a bigger piece of the pie, doesn't it make more sense to tax them greater? And I'm not trying to complain about that. I'm just pointing it out because one of the missions of the board within their vision plan was to try to invest in their pharmacists and they recognize how hard it is for pharmacists already. So you have your own things that you have to deal with. You have to cover your resources. You have to make your own budget. But it seems like the 40% across the board for everybody, it could have been done a little more tactfully, focusing on the groups that are taking up your most time for your work and the people who are generating the most in the state. And then lastly, part of the need for the increase was an update of the database, the technology that holds our licensing information. I get that. But what wasn't clear to us was that this seems like a one-time cost to upgrade the system. $1.5 million, I believe, is the line item. Why is there a one-time cost to update the system, but it's not a one-time rate increase? Where is that 1.5 going to go year after year after year? And these are things that my colleagues and I have kind of discussed, and they seem objectively concerning. Separate from the fact that we all are dealing with rising costs of stuff, trying to find the resources to do the work that we need. But those 3 things were things I wanted to share with the board as concerns. That's all.
Great. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it. The next rule would propose to adopt OAR 855-110-0006. This is the pharmacist examination fees paid to NABP. Nobody signed up to provide testimony for that rule. The next rule would amend OAR 855-110-0007, fees for registration, renewal, and reinspection of drug outlets. And Anthony, unless you would like to add anything, I believe you provided all of your comments for what you signed up for today. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much everything's wrapped up in that because it touches on, warehouses, facilities, institutions. I'm sure someone can do the math in the background, like, well, would it look different? Instead of 40% for the institutions, what if it was double? I know that's not going to make any friends with the institutions for me, but I'm sure that would cover a lot of the bases, because if you look at the line items on revenue from those institutions, it doesn't take long to find a number that kind of works that would not put those institutions out of business, but also take a lot of pressure off the pharmacists while achieving the revenue goals that are needed by the board. It's probably all I would add for that specific rule set.
Okay, thank you for that. Lastly, the It proposes to amend OAR 855-110-0010. This is fees for registration for controlled substances, and no one signed up to provide oral testimony on this particular rule. So at this time, for those of you on the call, if you would like to provide oral testimony, please use the raise the hand feature and I will open it up for any additional comments. Okay, so seeing no hands, again, it's just a brief hearing today. Thank you for attending our rulemaking hearing. Again, friendly reminder that the comments, all written comments need to be received by 4:30 p.m. today. And you want to email the written comments to pharmacy.rulemaking@bop.oregon.gov. It is now 9:41 a.m. and our hearing is now adjourned. Thanks, everyone.